Okay, so it is time for the fun video of the month. I can't believe that we are hours away from being 3.5 weeks into March and I still haven't done a fun video yet, and I said that I would do at least one every month. Today I am going to be answering the questions for the reading habits book tag, so let's get right into it. And if you would like to follow along while watching this in the comment section, please do answer the questions yourself. Let's see what you come up with. I have the reading habits book tag questions here, but I also have additional ones that come up after that. So let's see how far we get. Starting with question number 1. Do you have a certain place at home for reading? Yes, I do. It's funny because this place looks really lush and plush that I film in, but I don't actually read here. I would like to. There was a time when I would read maybe 5-10 minutes each morning before work in my lounge room, but I mainly read in my office. So yes, I do have a place that I prefer to read. It works for me. So I spend a lot of my time in there. It just works for me. Question 2. Bookmark or random piece of paper? Now here's an interesting answer for you. If you had asked me this last month, I would have said bookmark, of course, all the way. Nowadays, it's both, and I mean both in the one book. So because I have a certain number of pages that I like to read, that I like to read each day, I will have the bookmark in with where I'm up to, and then I'll have a little slip of paper that I'll put into the page that I want to get up to. And say I want to read 50 pages each day over the course of the next 2 days, then I'll have 2 slips of paper, one at the first 50 mark, one at the second 50 mark, and then the bookmark. So it will not be uncommon, and if you've seen my reading vlogs, you may have noticed it as well, to see a bookmark and then 2 other slips of paper also in the book, because that's where I'm headed towards, and I like to get to that point where I get to the slip of paper. So my answer for that one is both. Question 3. Can you just stop reading, or do you have to stop after a chapter or a certain amount of pages? I'm definitely the second one. I certainly struggle to just stop reading, and if I am interrupted while I'm reading a sentence, I will literally ask someone to just wait a second. I'm like, just wait. Okay, now talk. So I cannot just stop, but I will if I'm aiming to reach a certain chapter before I stop reading, I will reach that chapter. If I'm aiming to get to a certain page, I will get to that page. However, there are times that I do go over, and if I go over, I become a lot more lax. So let's say I plan to read 50 pages that day, which would get me, for example, to page 250, and I've gone over that. I have no problem stopping at page 253, 54, 55, whatever it is, because I've gone over that amount. But I definitely have a page number goal or a chapter goal each time that I pick up a book, each day to get through. Okay, question 4. Do you eat or drink while reading? This answer has changed for me as well. Last month I would have said both. This month my answer to that is that I do drink while I read, but it's not something that I'm overly conscious of. When I am at home, and with the coronavirus these days, we're all pretty much at home all day anyway, but now that I'm home all day, what my habit is that I wake up and I make myself a coffee. I have a pretty large mug. I don't know if you've ever seen Gilmore Girls, but you know those mugs that Luke has in his diner? My mug can rival that. It's pretty big, so I fill that up in the morning and it lasts me for a lot of the day. A lot of people, just a sidebar, a lot of people say to me, but if your coffee goes cold, my response today is, well, it becomes like an iced coffee. So I go from a coffee to an iced coffee, and that's fine. It works for me. But yeah, so I have that coffee on me all the time, and so I might take random drinks out of it every so often, but I'm not drinking it because I'm reading the book. It's just because it happens to be there. Question 5. Multitasking, music or TV whilst reading? Neither. If I can have everything be so incredibly quiet that you can hear a pin drop, I'm fantastic. And that's always been the way with me. Even growing up when I was in high school, a lot of my fellow students would talk about how they had to study to music or study to something on the background, where I was the total opposite. Turn off everything, put me in a soundproof room. Even the rustling of the wind in the background is going to distract me, so just turn off everything. So yeah, most of the time these days I am reading along the physical book while I listen to the audiobook, although that's not always the case. And so sometimes I can have the audiobook drowning out the background noise, and when that does happen, I appreciate that. If I'm reading a book, however, without the audiobook accompanying it, it has to be dead quiet. Otherwise, I get too distracted way too easily, and it takes my focus away from what I'm reading. So out of music or TV, neither. If it has to be one, TV, because, yeah, music I do find to be more distracting. Question 6. One book at a time or several? Yeah, so again, we've changed from last month. Last month I would have said one book at a time. At the moment, pretty much all month, I've been reading 2 books at a time, because Mistborn, The Well of Ascension, which I'm reading at the moment, is a tome and a half. It's more than 750 pages long, so I'm reading that alongside pretty much every other book that I've read so far. I'm reading it alongside The Well of Ascension. So I would say multiple books. We'll see how we go next month, but at the moment, that's where that does stand. Reading at home or everywhere? Oh, reading at home for sure. I have tried reading elsewhere, and when I was at work prior to the coronavirus pandemic, my plan was to read during lunch breaks. I have done that before, but it's been really hard for me to do. In fact, the only time I was successfully able to do that was when I was reading the first Mistborn book, Mistborn: The Final Empire, because I was so zoned into that book that seriously a disaster could be going on in front of me and I wouldn't have known because I was so into the book. But otherwise, I just find it way too hard because there's way too many distractions. So definitely at home. Read out loud or silently in your head? Definitely silently in my head. It's not to say that I don't react to books. Like, I will laugh, I will cry, I will get angry, absolutely, but I definitely am more of an internal reader. And especially when you have the audiobook on and you're reading along with the audiobook, the narrator's kind of the one that's reading it out loud anyway. So for me, whether I have the audiobook or not, I'm reading it internally anyway, so silently in my head. Question 9, do you read ahead or skip pages? I absolutely do neither. In fact, if I'm going to grab this book as an example. I'm not reading this book at the moment, but my dad is. This is Keith Richards' life autobiography. So I'm not reading it, my dad is, but I wanted to use it as an example, and he's pretty far into it, guys. He's done well. Proud of you, Dad. Anyway, let's say if I go to a point, yeah, okay, so see how on this page there's some italicized words here and then normal words up here. I will literally cover that to ensure that I get through the more mundane section first and then read the interesting section. So I never skip ahead. No. Certainly, sorry about the shaking of the camera, certainly not. I always read line for line, word for word. Yeah. So no, I don't read ahead, I don't skip pages, no. Question 10, breaking the spine or keeping it like new? Okay, I'm probably one of the only booktubers that will say, I don't mind if the spine breaks, provided I'm enjoying the read. The book is there to be read, and if the spine needs to break in order for me to enjoy my reading experience, then I'm fine with that. And I don't think that makes me any less of a reader. That's just the way it is. I don't think I've broken any spine at all. That wasn't already broken if I've borrowed it from the library. But I have books that are really, really kind of... they're long books, but they're really small books. And so to be able to properly read it, I kind of have to open the book up, force it open a little more so that I can actually read what I'm reading. Because otherwise I'm going, trying to, do that. So I will open it up. I will, put my hand over the page. All that, absolutely I will. Because I want to enjoy the experience and I don't want to be crammed going, okay, I'm trying to read this without breaking the spine. That's just not going to work for me. So if it breaks, it breaks, but I incidentally have not. So, yeah, coincidentally, I coincidentally have not broken any spine yet, but if I do, I do. Question 11, do you write in your books? In other words, do I annotate my books? I have I have quarterly annotated one book so far, and the only reason I haven't annotated any others is because I don't want to write in my misborn books. And other than that, I've been reading a lot of library books this month, and well, you can't really annotate a library book. I don't think they would appreciate that. Oh, guys, here's your book back. Yeah, but there's writing in it. Yeah, I annotated it just for you. You know? One day they might appreciate if I annotated their books, but right now I just don't think they would smile. And, I don't think they would appreciate that so much, so not really. I am currently reading a book that I do own, but because I've read so many library books, I've totally forgotten about annotation. But I don't mind doing it, and it is something that I will do if I remember, and if it's a book that is mine that I do own. But I don't want to do it with Mistborn. Okay, question 12. How much time do you spend... Oh, sorry. So that is the end of the book tag. Now we've got additional questions. So, how much time do you spend reading web pages each day? I really don't spend a lot of time at all. Every so often I go onto the Facebook group that I keep referring to, Passion for Books. Otherwise, I really don't read a lot of things online at all. I'm much more focused on reading my books, and that's really it. I don't read a lot of web pages at all, and I certainly don't read ebooks or anything like that, although I think that is another question that's coming up, so let's pretend you didn't hear that. Question 13. What is the last book that you read? The last book that I read was The Bizarre Stories of Bad Dreams. I think that's what it's called. The Bizarre Stories of Bad Dreams, which is a compendium of 20 mini books by Stephen King, and I really enjoyed it. Question 14. Do you prefer fiction or non-fiction? Fiction all the way. It's not to say that I have any disrespect or hatred of non-fiction, not at all. It's just that I much prefer to go into a fictitious world. So for me, if someone buys me a non-fiction book, thank you so much, and I'm sure I'll get to it at some point on my TBR, but I much prefer to read fiction. In fact, if I were to choose between a fictional book in a genre that I don't particularly like or haven't read before versus reading a non-fictional book, I will go with the fictional book with a genre that I don't particularly like or haven't read before, because I don't want to read about factual things. I want to read about made up worlds and certainly with fantasy books, world building, magic systems, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to be reading about factual things. I can do that by watching the news. I don't need to read books with that. So, but that's just my own personal preference. Question 15. What reading format do you prefer? I much prefer physical books. And if I were to choose between the physical paperback or the physical hardcover, I always said paperback, and very recently with the Bizarre Book of Bad Dreams by Stephen King, that is a hardcover book. Having read that book, I still maintain I much prefer paperback to hardcover. Oh, actually also Pool Boy by Michael Simmons was a hardcover. I prefer paperback. I just always have. So yeah, this is an example of a paperback. So yeah. So in case you didn't know, if you're not up to date with the lingo, the standard book is a paperback, but those books with a really hard, thick cover, those are the ones called hardcover. Okay, where are we? How often do you read? Well, I read every single day. And sorry, that is question 16. How often do you read? I read every day. Yeah, so I don't think you can get more specific than that, but I read every day. These days I'm reading, oh gosh, I would say at least 3 to 4 hours a day at least. So yeah, every single day. I don't take a day off from reading. And if I am anticipating that I'm going to take a day off, I will try to read more than I planned on reading that day in order to be at a better place for when I do pick it up in 2 days' time, or a day after I've taken a day off, I will read twice as much to get up to where I want to get up to. So yeah, I do keep a pretty tight reading schedule these days. Okay, Question 17, do you use physical books or audiobooks? I actually use both. However, I don't use audiobooks on their own, but I certainly can use physical books on their own. I tried to do the whole audiobook on its own thing and it just doesn't work for me. It might have worked for a book that I DNF'd, which in this case I will reference. The Kiss of Deception is a wonderful example of this. I was lying awake in the middle of summer, couldn't sleep, thought I would just listen to an audiobook, and I ended up finding on YouTube a version of The Kiss of Deception. And so I, part of the book one, the Remnant Chronicles series. I never thought I'd have to say that name again, but anyway, there we go, by Pearson, I believe her name is. Anyway, so I was listening to the audiobook version of that without the physical, and I loved it. Then I decided to put the physical version on hold at my local library, and I picked it up and started reading that, and then I ended up DNFing it. So that's the one exception to the rule, but I don't generally like listening to audiobooks without the physical book in front of me, but I will absolutely read a physical book without the audiobook. But the answer is both. Okay. Question 18, what is your preferred genre to read? Well, if you don't know that by now, but in case you've just clicked on this video randomly and you have not been watching my channel, my favorite genre is fantasy, and I can get very specific with this. High fantasy with amazing world building, epic fantasy with epic world building and hard magic systems. If you can give me a book that covers that, I will enjoy it. And a great example of that genre, for me, absolutely, bar none, is Mistborn, the Mistborn series. Now, I am one and three quarters of the way through that trilogy, the initial trilogy of Mistborn, and it is really amazing. But yeah, I love my fantasy stories. I've always loved stories that have some kind of a magical element in them, and so it's not surprising, therefore, that when I was a child, even just watching movies, my favorite Disney movie is Aladdin, and part of the reason why I loved that was because of the magic that was within Aladdin. So growing up, I had to find out what genre that comes under, and the best genre for a world that is not anything like our own and includes magic systems is fantasy. So definitely epic fantasy with high hard magic systems is my favorite genre. Question 19, what will inspire you to recommend a book? That is a really good question. All of these are really good questions, but that's a really good one. What will inspire me to recommend a book? If it is a really enjoyable read, I will recommend it. I'm very honest in my reviews, and so if I think a book deserves 1 star, I will give it 1 star. If I think it deserves 5 stars, I will give it 5 stars. But at the same time, I will, when I do reviews of my books, and if you've seen my videos, you know this already. If you haven't, now you do. I always give a non-spoiler version at the beginning where I give 3 cons to the book and 3 pros to make the point that, hey, I may have loved this book or been obsessed with it, or I may have really disliked this book, but just because I thought this doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to agree with me. So I will still say, if you find this to be something that you might want to read, then you should still go ahead and read it, because we all have different tastes. But for me, as far as books that I will continually recommend to others on this channel, but also outside of this channel, it has to be a book that captivated my interest from the first page and kept it all the way through to the last one. And that is why the most recommended book from me this year in 2020 has been Mistborn, The Final Empire, because that book captivated me from page 1 all the way through to the end non-stop. Another great book that I loved that I am also recommending to people, even though it's a middle grade book, is a book called Bot Wars by J.V. Cade. It is an amazing read, and it captivated me from page 1 all the way through to the end. And finally, question 20, how do you feel about giving bad/negative reviews? Well, I think I've already answered that, but I'll certainly answer it again. And again, it's another really good question. I have no problems whatsoever giving a bad review, because the way I see it, I came into doing this channel having made a few promises from the get-go, and there's no way that I could do this channel without sticking to these promises, because that's just who I am. The biggest promise that I made you guys is I'm always going to be honest. If I don't like a book, I'm not going to sit here and say this is the best thing I've ever read and I give it 5 stars just because I think that's the right thing that I should do. No, if I don't like a book, I'm going to tell you. As a matter of fact, I would now like to reference the review. You can check out my reviews in my review playlist. The review that I recently did on the book Goosebumps, My Hairiest Adventure by R.L. Stine. This book received 1 star from me, and I was not afraid to say why. Now, I do think there is a difference between absolutely full on, all out hating and projecting hatred of an author in a review versus constructively explaining why you didn't like a book versus why you did love it. And that's what I did with Goosebumps, My Hairiest Adventure by R.L. Stine. I did not enjoy the book. It deserved a 1-star rating, and I very much explained why I didn't like the book in the most constructive way that I could. So as far as how do I feel about giving bad or negative reviews, I don't feel one way or the other, because I want my viewers, my subscribers, to come here and know that regardless of whatever book I'm reading, whether I DNF it or whether I get all the way through, that you're going to get honesty from me, and you're not going to have me pandering to any author or to any publishing company or whatever by sitting here saying, I loved this and I think you should spend your hard-earned money on this book, when I don't think it was a good book. So, yeah, Goosebumps is a great example of that. I do recommend it to people who like the things that I didn't like, but I didn't like it. And I was more than happy to say, I didn't like this book, and that's why I gave it 1 star. So, and I will continue to do that. Another example I will give you, although I did not do a review on it, but I spoke about it in my final week of February reviews vlog, and my February monthly wrap-up was the book The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I absolutely love that show. It's an amazing show. I've been watching it from day one, and I still watch it to this day. In fact, I watched the latest episode again last night, so I'm always talking about the show because it's back in season right now. But I read the book thinking I would absolutely love it, and I did not. I don't like using the H word. I really don't like using the H word, but I hated that book for so many reasons that I couldn't bring myself to do a hatred review, and I didn't think that I could constructively explain why I didn't like it rather than just projecting hatred in the review. And that's why that is the one book that I've not done a spoiler and non-spoiler actual personalized review on, because I just don't think I could have been constructive in there. It would just be a lot of hatred coming through the screen. But yeah, I'm more than happy to be honest, and if that means I'm going to give a bad or a negative review, then that's what that means. This channel is all about honesty first and foremost. So I think we'll leave it there. We are 23 minutes and 14 seconds in, so I think it's a good time to finish that. Thank you so much for being here. I post videos every Wednesday and Sunday. I do my vlogs, and then I do reviews in between, but we have so many videos coming up, you guys, so please do keep on the lookout for them. I have a couple of reviews still left to go. Then I have my midweek vlog, which is coming up tomorrow. I also have my end of week vlog coming up on Saturday. Then I have my April TBR, my end of week vlog, sorry, coming up on Sunday, my April TBR coming up on Monday, and my monthly wrap-up coming up on Tuesday. So we have a lot of videos coming out this week, so be sure to look out for them. But until next time, mwah, peace, blessings, and so much love. Thank you so much for watching, and wherever you are, whatever you're reading, I hope you and your family are doing well through this coronavirus pandemic, and happy reading. I'll see you next time. Bye.